Welcome back to Building Better Business. I'm incredibly excited to introduce our guests for today. These are two guys who have absolutely transformed my personal sense of what business can be, what it should be. If you're familiar with my business partner, Alex Engar, we have both worked with Ben and Jay, who I'm going to introduce to you today, Ben McLellan and Jay Goncalves. I'm incredibly excited to have you guys on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us, Will. We're always up for a good conversation with you, so I'm happy to be here.
I'm super pumped to have you guys. Jay, I'm super happy to have the both of you. And I was just looking, none of us have any hair other than and I was going to start with hair product tips, and I think we'll just skip to more of the business side of stuff. But I want to make a quick intro. Ben and Jay, for those who don't know, recently just wrote a book. They're the owners of Ethical Scaling, the founders and owners of Ethical Scaling. They wrote a book, The Client Manifesto. It is one of the best books that you're going to read this year if you're a business owner, about how to keep your customers happy, how to retain them longer, and how to extend the value, not only financially from customers, but extend the value of the relationship that you have with the people you work with. And I'm really excited to dive in. Ben or Jay, I'll toss it to you guys. Do you want to just give a little background of how Ethical Scaling was started?
I will be the one. How it was started. That's a really good question. I would go back to the meaning behind the expression ethical scaling. I think that's a good start. Ethical, it can be kind of a hard to understand or describe word, but when I think about ethical, it's like in this internet marketing space specifically, if you're all familiar with, ethics is something that ethics are some of the most important things in our view to make sure that whatever you're building as a business, it's going to be aligned with what you value. And when we say what you value, it's not necessarily your business values, but what you value as an owner. Because when we look at the business, it's basically the business. Normally it's a means to an end. Like basically, what can this business do for me as an owner to live the kind of experiences that I want to live? Like for me, it's to allow me to build my family, have my place that I will call a house. For Ben, could be to be able to spend 3 months in Costa Rica like Ben is now. Those small things, it's what we look at when we think about ethical scaling. And then the second word, scaling, is also relevant because I think why we decided to go with that word is because of the misconceptions around what scaling actually means in this industry. In a lot of industries, people tend to confuse scaling with growing. And we've been seeing like so many people confusing that, and they end up like living a subpar life that they're not fulfilled with or about, because they keep growing, adding more stuff, more marketing, more sales, more and more and more. And not only the business starts to be really bloated, not making it very fulfilling to run that business, and also doesn't allow them to live the experiences that they want to live. So the interconnection or the overlap between ethical and scaling was kind of intentional. And although we're probably known now more than ever about back-end stuff like fulfillment, customer experience, customer success, why we use the word scaling is that a lot of the scaling that the business want to go through will be based on customer success. Like one of the most relevant expressions that I probably use, and it's not mine, but I keep using it, it's when you're client-centric, you earn the right to scale. You earn it. It's not because you want to scale, you need to earn the right to scale. So I think that kind of explains the meaning of ethical scaling, but I don't know, Ben, do you have anything else that you would like to add in here?
Yeah, no, I think it's this balance of, it's not just about doing the right thing, right? When we talk about ethical, like of course, like, when we look at working with someone, we want to kind of probe and see, like, is this person showing up in integrity? Are they honest? Are they, upholding their word? Like that's almost a given, right? At least for us. That piece that Jay shared around, like, am I growing and crafting this business to really support the life that I want? I think that's the bigger need, especially in the high ticket space, So, that's all I'll add there.
Yeah, you said something, Jay, that stuck with me, and I'd love to maybe dive into a little bit deeper, which was, there's a difference between growing and scaling. And I'd love if I'm curious what you meant by that in terms of what's the difference. I think a lot of people feel like they know when something's growing. I'm not just sure if they know if it's scaling, and I'm pretty confident they don't know. Most of us don't know the difference between which is which. So I guess I'd really be curious, what would you say the difference is then for you guys, Jay, since you first said it, like what's the difference for you from growing and scaling?
So I want to give a little bit of background. Like most of my life, I was a systems engineer. So everything that I work with was a system. So I had to understand the system from start to finish. And whenever I wanted that system to run optimally, I had to understand the constraints, elevate the constraints, and most people are familiar with the theory of constraints. And when I think about scaling, it's not more than getting your existing system, marketing, sales, fulfillment to be scalable. And scalable means getting the same outputs with less inputs, or getting more outputs with the same inputs. This is why we have this crazy goal of tweaking fulfillment to make it deflationary over time. That's the perfect definition of scaling, because if you can serve, and I'm just looking at fulfillment because that's our zone of genius, but this can apply to any part of your business. But from a fulfillment perspective, when you're able to serve your clients with the same level of quality and predictability and certainty with less inputs from your team, it means that you're actually scaling your fulfillment, because now you're able to deliver a great experience, great results, your clients are happy, and you're able to meet expectations with less work. And that's expected. I didn't create that rule. It comes from it's called the Wright's Law, and it's applied to any labor that has existed since the industrial age, which is over time, any specific niche or industry, the labor costs will go down to produce the same amount of outputs. And that's the definition of scaling. Any business, it can apply to tech, it applied to agriculture, all the stuff before that we were doing follow the same rules. But in this space, because if you look at it, the internet world is kind of brand new compared with the business world. And I think we haven't had enough cycles to spread this message that scaling and growing is not the same thing. So going back to a very simple sentence, scaling is your ability to produce either the same amount of outputs with less inputs, or produce more outputs with the same level of inputs you have in your business today. And inputs could be, from a fulfillment perspective, the amount of hours and team members you need to deliver that result, or it could be applied to sales and marketing. Are you able to get cheaper leads, higher quality leads, increase your conversion from leads to booked call, if you're running calls, to conversion as a client? All those small things, when tweaked over time, will create a scaling opportunity. So scaling is not directly a result, it's just a scaling opportunity when you understand which are the levers you need to play with in order for you to increase your system effectiveness and efficiency.
Yeah. But anything you want to add to that?
Nope,
Yeah.
he nailed it.
Awesome. I think there's thank you, Jay, for breaking down the difference, because I think they're inherently words that, if you're in business, resonate with you, but the nuance and the definition can be very different. And I think for us, for me, in a simple example, since what we do with CEO Finance Academy is we work with a lot of businesses that are growing top line revenue, right? It's our business is growing. And then we look at, there are plenty of them whose take home pay is becoming less, or their satisfaction is becoming less. And you think, why are we going to so much effort to grow on paper? And it's actually less of a sellable business. Like if they had to leave the next day and sell it, it's actually far less valuable because it doesn't bring home that much actually take home like money. It's something like that. And so I think that's a great, what you said is a really clear, I think, definition for that. I would have to say, and I think I actually read that too. And I think Ben, in one of there's a leader out there in the business world who had a Facebook post recently that Ben just commented on, was something really similar. And that sparked me of like, oh yeah, the difference between growing and scaling. Ben, I'd love for you, for your end, because so Jay comes from the systems engineer background. I think it's really cool that, people might not know this about you. You don't come from the systems engineering background. Ben, will you give us a little bit of a sort of history on you of how you got into this world? What led you to even being a part of this?
Yeah, sure. So I got into the online space as a Facebook ads agency. I had a yoga and personal training brick and mortar studio for 6.5 years. And then after I sold that, I was, in a phase of like, okay, now what? And I forget exactly how I started in ads, but anyway, I started exploring and taking, I think I took Dan Henry's course way back, like 8 or 9 or 10 years ago. And, I started running ads for some businesses and, was growing little by little. And, I joined Client Kit, which was Traffic and Funnels, flagship program back in the day in 2017. And was going through and just had this realization of like, man, at my core, I'm a coach. I'm not an ads manager, I'm a coach, and I need to figure out how I'm going to be in that role. And so while I was in the program, I had some conversations with the client success director at Traffic and Funnels, and then became a part-time coach basically as soon as I graduated the program. And then 3 or 4 months later, I became a full-time coach there. And then, 4 months after that, I became a client success director. So it was kind of like a rapid, stepping up into this realm of, online coach consultant. And I was at CF for 2 years. I learned a ton. I saw like 1,000 people go through that program. And, when I left, I was overseeing like 250 active clients and a team of 7. And I'll say I'm fairly good in client relationships, right? In terms of like understanding clients and supporting them. But what was missing for me was this kind of systematic approach that Jay has brought into what we do. And it's not obviously the only thing that Jay has brought, but I was talking to someone today and I said, man, if I had these trainings of how to really lead clients well and how to understand the psychology and how to build a fulfillment funnel. Like if I had all of this back in 2017, like my life would have been so much easier. I, probably had a better chance of not burning out back then. And so, it's like, it's that experience of volume and trying to be everything to everyone and burning out that kind of intrigued me to try and create something better, and I had a kind of a simple framework when I started mapping out Raving Fan Formula. I was fortunate to know Jay at that time and was just like, dude, your brain is far better at like system stuff than mine. Can we hop on a call and, can I get some feedback from you? And, that kind of led to us working on a client together. And then it just kind of snowballed to, from there to now, we're obviously 50-50 partners, but that's kind of my backstory and how I've gotten to where I am today.
Yeah. Well, I love for both of you guys to come from, different perspectives of ways of thinking, right? And Ben, you had that firsthand experience of massive volume of clientele, which is its own systems break when volume just keeps getting hammered, right? And you have to rethink what's a new system now. You get this, and you can bring someone in like Jay, obviously they don't call you the brain for no reason, right? You can go in and look at this and figure it all out. I gotta pivot here to the book. You guys recently released your book, and I have to ask, like, what was the motivation behind writing a book? I ask because there's so many people who are like, maybe I'll write a book one day. I want to write a book, right? It's a classic thing of like, one day I want to do this. It's sort of, I think, like the marathon equivalent for a business owner. It's like, I want to run a marathon and put it off, check it off my bucket list. But for owners, it's like, I want to write a book. What was the motivation? And on a scale of 0 to 10, how painful of a process was it?
Well, motivation, I can share that. Like, it was not new. I think a year ago, we had a conversation about, can we kind of create a framework about what we call the Raving Fan Formula, which is our consulting offer. But it looked like a daunting process because it was a lot. Our consulting formula, it's complex. We've tried to make it simple for our clients, but to explain it for a first book, it would be very complex. But then after a lot of changes that happened last year, there was a night, I remember like it was today, I woke up in the morning and I messaged Ben, like, I had this dream that we're going to write this book. What do you think about it? Might be crazy. And he was like, yeah, like, okay. I think 7 days later, I had the whole structure built for the book. So the goal from start to finish, I know exactly what the chapters would be and how we want to fill them out. And I was like, Ben, let me just start the first draft, and then I will share it with you and we'll make it better. And I think we took like 30 days to have the first draft ready. I don't think it was painful, but I think we've been doing this for so long that I knew exactly what we wanted to share with the world. And we decided to go first with the Customer Success Manifesto because it's a playbook. It's not the raving fan formula because that requires some other things, but it's like, cool. If people read the Customer Success Manifesto, we'll start with the first thing we want for this industry, which is for people to focus more on the client experience and client success and meeting client expectations before we teach them something else later, like teaching them how to increase revenue and profitability through the fulfillment funnel. But can we give people the opportunity to understand what's scaling, what's a fulfillment funnel, how to deal with different kinds of people, client archetypes? And I think both of us had been holding back on sharing that with the world. And this is why it was so fast for us to create it, because we knew what we wanted to talk about. And another thing that I think was relevant for us, we weren't attached to the outcome. Our main goal was, can we make a book? Because if we're able to make a book and create a book out of our concept and the work we've been doing with more than 100 businesses, that's the framework we'll keep using moving forward with the next businesses that are going to hire us. So it allowed us to streamline our concepts and ideas and frameworks even further that would end up benefiting the clients that worked with us up to that. And I think, Ben, you probably have some other ideas to share.
Well, I think because we talked about, business that supports the life you want earlier in this conversation, I think it's worthwhile to share a little bit of backstory in that at the beginning of last year, right? Yeah, at the beginning of 2022, I was kind of fried. I didn't know where I wanted the business to go. I took the month of February completely off. Like I didn't take any calls. Like, I was connected with Jay a little bit, but I was like napping for 2 hours a day and going to bed at 8 o'clock. Like I was just complete toast. And, I took it real easy for the first half of the year. And then I don't know exactly why, but it was like in July, I got this burst of energy. And I said to Jay, like, I'm not sure what's happening, but I want to start like having conversations with people and just knocking on doors, basically. And it was around that time where I think he had this dream, and he was like, I think I'm going to write a book. And I was like, cool, like, do it. And, he produced this initial draft. It was literally like 30 days. Wow. And I did like a little bit of editing and feedback, but like the bulk of the content was Jay. And I was looking at this thing and I was like, oh my God, like this is freaking amazing. And, we talked about like doing an audio book, and it was actually I think a really pivotal piece of this, not because like the audio book's so awesome. It wasn't that.
It's awesome.
Well, it would be better if it was Jay's voice. It's my voice. But by me having to go into the studio and read out loud, like I had read through the book several times, but by reading it out loud, it made me go, okay, I think this could flow a little differently. And so the process of going in and recording the audio, I recorded it all the way through. And then I did some more editing on the flow of the book, not the actual content, but just the flow. Then I recorded it again. And I think, for both of us, we were like, oh man, like now it's where it needs to be for us to share it with people. And that like wasn't planned. So the reason I'm sharing that is because like, yes, there was a plan, but there was also like what Jay talks about, there was process flexibility, so within the plan, we were being flexible to ensure that like when we were done with this thing, it was like, oh yeah, this is ready for people to actually use as a reference guide to customer success in the high ticket space, especially.
Yeah. I'm so glad you guys did put the book together. From the reviews I've read and the little bit I've read so far, it's been amazing. And I would love to say real quick, if someone's listening and they're quickly able to go access, where can they go get it? If someone wants to grab a copy, is it on for the audiobook and the physical version?
Yeah. So there's a couple options. If you want to get it from us directly, you can just go to ravingfanbook.com. Some people are, prefer Audible or iTunes. So the audiobook's definitely on there. We also have that in the funnel. So again, it's ravingfanbook.com is where you can grab it.
Cool. I will make sure I have in the show notes too, if you're listening to this and want to click on a button. I want to say I was watching, first off, Jay, I'm impressed. 30 days to write a book is like, in my mind, or first draft is like incredible to me. I can't even imagine. I think
it's like 330 pages too.
Oh my gosh. It takes me that long to write like 2 paragraphs. It's amazing that you can do that.
Yeah.
Including the drawings. I think that's another thing, because I was the one creating all the illustrations in the book as well. And one thing that I want to share with people, like, you don't need to do that. If you feel like you're going to struggle with those small things, just hire someone to build them for you. But one of the goals and the constraints I had shared with Ben early on, this is going to be a minimum viable idea. So if I can write the most out of it and we can edit the 2 of us and I can create the drawings and the illustrations for the book, that's the direction I want to go. If we do another one, will we do it differently? Yeah, we will do a couple of things differently, but it was very, very kind of simple. And like for people to, I need to hire this person and that person, I just spend like $10,000, $100,000 to write a book. You don't need to. If you have something worth sharing, which I believe most people do, just take the time, just schedule that time and make sure you have 30 minutes a day and just go and do it. And then you can hire someone to help you reorganize it and making it better. But I think people tend to make it look like a really daunting task. It is, partially it is, but I don't want to make it look like it's super easy, but it's doable for most people. I think if it's a priority for you, just put it in your schedule and you'll get it done.
Yeah, I think something that came to mind too is you guys have been doing this for so long. I think if someone's going to write a book on something, it's the thing you talk about every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to say it's easy to write a book, but in theory, it's if you can organize your thoughts, that's really what a book is just organizing those thoughts down on paper. And so I'm not totally surprised you can knock it out in 30 days. Just the discipline to knock it out is impressive to me. I was watching your guys' Facebook Live. I'm not sure if it was yesterday or 2 days ago. And it just got me thinking, Jay, you're talking about process flexibility. It was something that I think is really critical where, I'll let you share a little bit on that. But let's start with that. I'd love to ask, what's process flexibility for you? So I was listening to this and I was like, man, sometimes I feel like you go into a service and it's very rigid. Either you fit in, you don't. And you were explaining process flexibility. I think this would be great for owners to think about. How would you describe what process flexibility is? And then how do you guys approach it?
So process flexibility is making sure that you always have a goal in mind for the work you're doing with the clients, but being flexible enough to adjust on the go without getting completely derailed. And there will be exceptions, but generally speaking, there are a couple of things that allow you to build process flexibility. One of the things is making sure you always have line of sight. So you know exactly where you're going and you're able to communicate that clearly to your clients. So they know what's the destination postcard. And the second thing is making sure that both you and your client know there are no single points of failure. And that's one of the things that will give you process flexibility is, oh, cool. So you guys have a contingency plan. So this thing that we started isn't working. It means that you guys have an alternative thing that we can go through, another pathway that will take us to the same destination. The way I look at consulting and even coaching every now and then, it's more like we are the GPS. So we will always give you the fastest route to your destination. So if you miss a ride, I can readjust the route to still get you there. But if people feel like you don't have the certainty to do that, that's not a flexible process, because it means that you will end up using expressions like, for those who do the work, they get all the results. What I hear when I hear an owner saying that is that I know how to make this process work for 1% of the population, but all the other 99% won't get results from my system. And that can work early on, but during a scaling process, it won't. For you to scale, because the amount of people you're going to work with, it's completely different from when you just launched an offer. You need to be prepared to deal with different, what we call archetypes. Different archetypes value different things. And in order for you to have like a broader audience with different archetypes, you need to be prepared to have process flexibility. Simple example, some people value novelty, others value certainty. Those two things are completely different. This is why when you think about diffusion of innovation, you have innovators and early adopters. And when you cross the chasm, you have early majority. Early majority don't behave like innovators because they don't value novelty, they value certainty. And those small things need to be kept in mind when you think about process flexibility. Because if we treat someone that values certainty like we treated someone that valued novelty, it's not going to work. So basically, summarizing, process flexibility is making sure you know where you're taking your clients in the future, what's the kind of outcomes they have in mind, knowing what are the milestones along their journey, but being flexible enough to accommodate the changes that need to happen. Either it's a contingency plan or you being able to help your client understand what's happening and how they're showing up in order for them to get to the next milestone and to the next milestone until they get to the outcome in a way that aligns with the sustainable pace they can go through, basically.
I would love to ask you, because thank you for breaking that down, Jay. I think that was a great explanation. What sounded to me in some, or what I heard in some ways, was someone has to, if you're the business owner and you're the one delivering the service, one, you have to be self-aware enough to recognize different archetypes, right? Like I'm thinking back of being in businesses where just you could tell like you weren't being heard, right? And it was just nope, you're a round peg, let's go in the hole. And I'm a square, like I can't, I couldn't do it. And I guess Ben or Jay, I'd love to ask you guys this too. When you meet, whether it's an owner who's delivering the service, or let's say they're hiring, I think this might even be a more concrete or a more relevant example for you guys is we're running a business, we're delivering the service ourselves. We start hiring to have someone take over the client fulfillment side of things. And maybe they're not as intuitively self-aware as we were just because we had 1,000 reps in this, right? How do you guys work with, and this could also be a plug for for your guys' university and academy that's coming up. How do you guys think through that transition for owners of being able to keep that sense of flexibility while training someone else who might not be as intuitive with it or have the experience that they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, there's a couple of big pieces, right? So there's like the skills that the person actually needs, but then there's also like an edification piece that has to happen from the owner, and even in the sales process, right? Like as an example, I mean, most people know Jay really well at this point, right? Like if I get on a sales call for consulting, like they're going to know Jay for the most part. But even at this point in our business, I talk about how Jay does delivery, and Adam is also on our team, and he's a junior consultant, and he's been trained by Jay and I, and there's that piece. But I position Jay as like Jay heads up our delivery. One, because he's awesome at it, and he's also far better than me. So it's almost like, and it's true, but I bring that up purposefully on the call so that it's not like, oh, when do we get to talk to Ben? It's like, no. Be glad that you're not working with Ben because you're in far better hands. And Ben will send you a gift, and that's like the best thing you're going to get out of Ben in this experience. So I think the edification piece is really important, because you could have the most skilled account manager or success manager in the world, but if clients don't respect them or trust them, then it just doesn't matter. They're gonna be away from the buy-in place that we want them to be in. So I think that's a big piece. The other piece is like, this archetype, which Jay did get really deep into archetypes in the book. So, anyone who's looking at hiring an account manager or training them, like that should be standard process. And it doesn't have to be the archetypes that we use, but looking at like, what are the 3 to 4 typical personality types that we attract, and how do we guide each of those effectively so that we're not trying to guide everyone the same way, because that will never work. So whether you use our approach to archetypes or the disc or whatever thing you want to use, like use something, because when you use it, clients will start to feel like, wow, Will really understands me and I feel heard and I feel seen. They're going to be more bought in. They're going to be more trusting. They're going to take action more because of all of those things, kind of working together. So I think those are two big things. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's a lot to account management, but if I were to put maybe the 20% at the forefront, I would say it's probably that.
Yeah. I love those examples. And I think because we come from, the internet marketing world, I often think the archetypes people look for are, do you have access to funding and, or do you have money right now that you can pay for this? Is kind of the archetype like most internet marketing companies are looking for.
Are
Beyond
you
that,
alive?
Credit card
Yeah,
and pulse.
Are you
Yeah,
alive?
credit card and pulse.
pretty much. Yeah. Do you have a family or friend who would be willing to front you, 25,000 for this? And it's like, yeah, for sure. Okay, you're in. Like, I'm glad, I obviously we know each other. I love you guys for how, how well you take care of people and qualify people. I do want to dive into, because I know we've been talking about some of the client success manifesto stuff. I would love to pick your brain, Jan, and since and Ben as well, of when a business comes to you guys. I think, I'll just give you from my perspective. I see your guys' stuff all the time. I know you guys. I think I've fallen in love with your guys' personalities, how much you care for people. But there still often is a little like, hey, we know we're talking about fulfillment, back end stuff. Like, what does this look like? What's a process look like for you guys? Do you mind sharing with us a little bit, or on the podcast here? Like, what does it look like when you're even vetting a business? What are you looking for? What do you feel like, hey, here's a process we could take them through? I don't know if you guys have a rubric in your mind. I know obviously with Jay, of course, there's got to be some kind of, system thing going on. Would love that for somebody who's listening to this and maybe is like, hey, we've really grown or scaling, and we're at a place where maybe we should look at getting help with our fulfillment or the back end side of stuff. Do you mind just sharing a little about your guys' process with us?
I mean, I
you
can
speak
for sure.
the sales portion. We do marketing together, but you do sales, so I think you'll be able to explain really well.
Yeah, so there's definitely like a few simple things that we look at. For people we want to work with, like they have to be hitting certain revenue marks for it to make sense just from a cash flow standpoint. And again, that one of the reasons we've got the book and we've got some forces in that funnel is because we know that for people that are doing less revenue, if they go through it and apply even a few of those things, they could have a really massive positive impact. Even just the shift in thinking of, oh, wow, my fulfillment is actually a revenue generating department versus a cost if you're doing it according to how we kind of guide you. So, again, like what does a typical ideal consulting client look like? Usually they're doing 75K a month or above. They'll have a team of, at least one or two in terms of delivery, or they're like ready to hire. Like that's kind of this point where the owner is ready to like get some of their time back, train someone. We do that with several clients. And there's usually either some issue with clients dropping off, kind of starting to ghost those numbers, or even refund requests, and we can see sometimes 10%, 15%, that happening in businesses. So that is often like a problem. The owner wants to get some time back and delegate more of the client fulfillment to their team. And then the third thing is like retention. So, the business might have no secondary offer. They might be hitting like 10 or 15 or 20% retention. When for us, if you're doing a solid job in the front end journey, meeting client expectations for the most part, it's never going to be perfect. But any business that's doing that should fundamentally be able to retain 50 to 80% of their clients.
Yeah.
And that's not the norm in the high ticket space, I'll tell you that, but it's starting to change. It's starting to shift. So, those are kind of like the big things that we see in terms of, clients that we can consult with and kind of help the most, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Man, I have like 7 other questions, but I'm going to try to stick to just a couple more of, with that, you guys are doing something really cool. And I think this is awesome because we might have a lot of newer business owners who are watching this, who are like, man, I maybe this whole business thing isn't going to be for me. You guys have a really cool opportunity with, helping people become client success managers. Would you guys want to share a little about kind of the opportunity? I don't know if it's too soon to let people know it's going to be happening or if that, or like just kind of the details, who it might be for.
Yeah. So it's basically, we're calling it Remote Account Manager University, and we've just launched the offer a couple of weeks ago, and we have 3 people in the program at the moment. So Jay and I are very much focused on quality and not quantity, right? So we're bringing in our first 5. We're going to take a couple of weeks, start to bring them through the experience, which is, it's a one-to-one experience with some group aspect. But again, we're more focused on serving these clients really well. So, it's a thorough training. It's the exact training that we do with our consulting clients team, so it's self-leadership, and it's, hard and soft account management skills. And, for these guys, if they don't already have a role, it's like, how do I land a role in a high ticket business? And there is a 4th part that's more around like being a director of a team, because what we often do with clients as well is, in a first phase, they're kind of building their team or strengthening their team. But then in phase 2, it's like, all right, we want so-and-so now to start to lead client success. Can you guys help us develop this person into a director? So we've got all of that within the university. And the people that we're attracting and we really want to work with are, people that, 1, really enjoy building relationships, right? 2, they're strong and follow through. So people that uphold their word, right? They're grounded. They show up when they say they're going to show up. Like they've got some detail orientation. Those types of people, just in terms of like raw skills and personality, are what we found to be the best kind of fit for account or success management, right?
Yeah.
And the backgrounds vary. It's interesting. I've had several conversations already, but some of the people have owned their own businesses. Some of them were trained as setters and closers. Some of them are actually in client success roles now, and they just want to develop themselves to be better in their role, but also to have a chance at being a client success director, either with their current company or, with another company. So, that's kind of what we're working on. And it was really born out of people coming to us. I mean, we probably get 3 to 5 requests a week right now of, hey, do you guys have any account managers I need to hire? And there's just a massive shortage. So finally, after a year or a year plus of talking about the offer, we were like, all right, let's go. It's time to do this. No one else is stepping up to the plate. So let's do it.
So I'm so pumped it's happening. I think it's so necessary, so needed, in the industry, and to be led and guided, right, by you guys who do it all the time. You're consulting with it and see it literally every day that you guys are working. If someone's interested in that, should they go somewhere? Should they email you guys, reach out to you? Is there a good way to contact you if someone's listening is like, hey, it might be something I want to consider?
Yeah. So a couple ways. You can search for me on Facebook if you want, and, shoot me a DM. You can search for the Remote Account Manager University Facebook group. We've got a free Facebook group, so you can get in there. We're sharing some trainings and going live and that kind of thing. So if you guys just want to get in our world, you can search for that group, and that's a great place to get started.
Cool. I'll have links to all of those too in the show notes if you're listening and you want to go check that out. I want to be mindful of your guys' time. I want to ask one last thing for Jay, because this was something that talk about great marketing. I think it was either this week or last week. There was a big, I don't know, I think it was you who wrote a post that was over delivering. I'm paraphrasing here. Over delivering is bad, or you don't want to over deliver for your clients. And I remember just seeing like, oh, that goes against everything I've heard ever about business. So if you want to over deliver and over surprise, and you had this great talk or great post about meeting expectations rather than over delivering. And I'd love to share with you. I think so many of us get caught up in how to make this an over deliver in this experience. That's what's going to keep people loving and staying here, right? And you've talked about archetypes a bit here of maybe certain match up with meeting expectations rather than over delivering. I'd love to just ask your opinion, get your take on what did you mean by that with the over delivering versus meeting expectations, and why is it such a big deal for if you're a business owner to get this right?
I think there is a big misconception about customer experience. And I think I love stories like Zappos or Amazon and all those big companies that spend most of their life trying to over deliver. And that's totally okay. But I like to think about it as a systematic approach. Can you over deliver to 100% of your clients? I'm sure you can't. For most of us, that would be fairly difficult to say. We don't have funding, unlimited like IPOs that we can go public and get all the money to afford to wait 10 years to make a profit, like some of these companies go through. And that being said, all the studies show us that anything above and beyond meeting expectations follows an inverted U approach. So for any extra unit of extra delivering, you'll get diminishing returns to a level of detracting value from what you're doing with your clients. I've seen people trying to do so much that the clients get like really concerned about what's going on. It's like, this is not over delivering. It feels like someone is stalking me or they're trying to do too much. I don't want all of that. And again, it depends on the archetypes we're serving. But I think if there is one key concept people can keep in mind is, if you want your clients to feel good about your service, remember what's your client expectation and meet that expectation. If you can do that for more than 80% of your clients, then you can start thinking about, I'm not even saying over delivering, but just creating some better peak memories within their journey. Because there is a rule called the peak end rule that explains what we remember from an experience. It's either the higher high or the lowest low and the ending. And all these companies that say they're trying to over deliver don't spend enough time thinking about the highs and the lows and the ending. So they're just trying to over deliver, and they create a flat line front, like beginning to finish. And when you look at the experience, it's very bland. Even if it's a high, it's always a high. Like think about a sport, a game. What makes it fun is because you have the highs and the lows and the ending, and it would be amazing if your team wins. And that's something we need to keep in mind when we understand customer psychology. For most people, just enhancing the highs, minimizing the lows, creating a memorable ending, and meeting their expectation, it's going to cover like 99% of their wants and needs.
I love that. I think if I remember right, in the video, which I'll try to find the link to, I think it's in your guys' Facebook group, but I'll try to get the link to the video because it's great. You said something that resonated with me, and I think will hopefully stick with other people, was you said that you were meeting with a client and you said, hey, what's your expectation for your clients? And they're like, we want everyone to hit 10K a month or 100K a month. I can't remember what it was, some, monetary number per month was their goal. And you asked a great question. What's your client's expectation?
And it wasn't the same. When I asked them that, and I met with them today again, and now everyone is thinking differently about their client journey, because they're like, oh, cool. So maybe we don't need to challenge everyone in our team to get clients to make like 6 figures, because we just understood that most of our clients are not trying to get the 6-figure salary. They're just trying to get a job that provides the certainty and the safety level and the comfort they're looking for from their own needs as a human, basically.
Yeah. Oh, man, I don't want to take up too much. I got one quick, tiny little question that could be massively long, but I hope it's a short question. Also, I've been thinking about the name of Remote Account Manager University of RAMU, like the play on words and puns that could come out of that could be great. But I'm super curious of what was I going to say? Shoot, I had it. No, I tried to make a Ramu joke, and now I totally lost what I was going to say. How do we? So this is the thing, right? We're in a world where it was probably 2 years ago, Alex Hormozi released $100 million offers. Everyone went on the guarantee train, right? And it's the front end marketing is this crazy expectation, right? And I think there's the thought of like, if you're the one selling this in high ticket, it's like, well, my expectation is this crazy guarantee I offered. So that's the expectation. How do we manage this? Or is it like, hey, it's like a housing market crash where it's like, yeah, we all went for the high, low interest rate, but oh my God, now there's no more inventory. How do we manage this in this world where we're getting one message in the market of offer the craziest expectation via guarantee, but on the other end, like, these are real people who have hopefully different normal expectations. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself too well, but curious, just your guys' take on that, this conundrum here of go all out crazy front end offer, expectation. And there's a part of it's like, we have to compete just to get attention now.
Mm-hmm.
But then the reality of setting real expectations with clients. Curious for you guys' take on that.
So I have this kind of love and hate relationship with guarantees because I don't have anything against guarantees. What I have against is guarantees that are just created by marketeers and salespeople that don't align with what fulfillment can do when they sell the offer. Because if your guarantee says, hey, Will, if you show up every single day of the week and do these 3 things that I'm asking you to do for 12 weeks in a row, and you don't get any results, I'm going to refund you, I would be totally okay with that. But have you ever seen guarantees like that? I didn't, except for the clients that I've worked with, and I challenge them to tweak the guarantees a little bit. The guarantees are like, you either make 20K working with us, or we'll refund you your 7K initial investment, or we'll keep working with you till you make an ROI. Like, why don't we make it based on behaviors? Like, any data that you use should be used to inform behavior. And I don't see that being framed that way. So that's the problem that I have with guarantees, is because guarantees have been promoted. And I'm not calling anyone out specifically. I'm just talking in general. I think there is a misconception around guarantees. One of the worst things about a guarantee, what you're telling a client is you can keep 1 foot out of the door and you can run away anytime you want. And that doesn't help with behavior change. If you go back to psychology, one of the parts we want to avoid when we're helping someone change behavior is relapsing. And the guarantee, it's a relapsing opportunity, goes against any therapeutic approach. You can search anywhere with a therapist, with a psychologist, someone that has been doing behavior change to their clients. It goes against any of the approaches they will use. And that's the thing I have against guarantees. You're giving your client a free opportunity to relapse. And what we want for our clients is for them to go through pre-contemplation, action, maintenance. Those should be the goals. And those ones are behavior-based. And it's like, if you go through that model and you don't get results, I will take responsibility. But I'm not going to give you a free opportunity to go back to relapsing, because that's not going to serve you well as a client. It's actually going to do the opposite. And we need to remember something: longevity in this space. If someone comes with a new idea and their longevity is 6 months in this space, think twice about the feedback they're giving you about how to run an offer. Because one of the things that concerns me the most in this space is that almost everyone that is known is a marketeer, and every market goes in cycles. And if you're at the top of any cycle, it could be economic cycle, could be a marketing cycle, any cycle, it looks like everything works until it doesn't. So that's what I'm seeing with guarantees. And do you want me to tell you what's the next trend? I can tell you, because I'm working with clients. The next trend that everyone is doing, promising their clients a year-long access to a program. Everyone is doing that now. Is the new trend. I don't know who has put that out, but that's a new thing. It's like framing it as a year-long program. You're paying this high-ticket investment. You have a year to get it done. Remember one thing: Parkinson's law. That's the thing you need to remember. Time, like the work will expand for the time available for its completion. So if you're giving your clients 1 year to achieve a result they could achieve in 90 days, it's a disservice. So you're thinking as a marketer and as a salesperson, and not as a coach, as a transformation-based program that helps your clients embody the identity they're looking for the future. And that's the most important thing. No one wants 10K a month. No one wants 100K a month. going back to the beginning of our conversation, they want to live a life full of the experience they're looking for. Could be family, could be traveling, could be financial freedom, location freedom, whatever you want to call it, but that's what they want. It's never the tangible number that we're selling as a marketeer.
Oh, man, this is a great way to end this. I think that there's so many great points in that, Jay. And yeah, I think, and you heard it first here of the trends that's going to come, if you haven't noticed it already, of the trend that's going to be there. And yeah, I think so much of what you said, Jay, it just rings true for, I think how a lot of people are feeling in the marketplace too, of like, after a while you're like, it kind of sounds too good to be true. And maybe it is. And, I don't have to really, I have a foot in, a foot out. And I'm sure anyone who's been in a relationship loves that. If you're like, hey, you want to date, but you can like kind of be in, kind of be out if you want, like, whatever, up to you.
Perfect example. Perfect example.
Builds a lot of trust and confidence in the strength of that relationship, I'm sure. But I feel so bad. I've kept you guys longer than anticipated. I want to say just a huge thank you, guys. Obviously, you guys have been huge business mentors for me in my life. I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. If anyone wants to reach out to you guys, either they're interested in just dabbling more into your content or they want to reach out to work with you guys, obviously we've mentioned go get the Customer Success Manifesto. I'll have a link to that here in the podcast show notes. Anywhere else you guys want to point them to?
I mean, they can check out our website, ethicalscaling.com. It's, a little bit more about what we do, how we think about client experience and those kinds of things. So that's a great place to go too.
Cool. I'll have the links to all of those guys in the show notes. Please go back and listen to this one again, especially if you run a higher ticket business or a high-end service and you've got a team, like go back and listen to this again. Go get the Customer Success Manifesto. I'm going to go study up on my archetypes. It's not something I've thought a ton about, so I'm going to be diving into that. And obviously, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Ben. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Building Better Business.